For part 2 of our message today, pathway to wisdom, knowledge, and witty inventions, please turn your Bible with me to Proverbs chapter 8, verse number 12. Proverbs 8:12, it reads, and I quote, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge and discretion. The King James Version of that Bible states, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge of witty inventions. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge of witty inventions. Please note that without wisdom and knowledge, there cannot be witty inventions. And without these powerful forces of wisdom, knowledge, and witty inventions, no individual, society, or nation can make any significant progress in this world. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 15 to 23. Proverbs 8, 15 to 23, beginning from I, wisdom, it now continues, by me, kings reign, and rulers decree justice. By me, princes rule, and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently. As the word again, diligence. Those who seek me diligently will find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yes, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. Oh, you don't know why. Go back there. I will soon show you. Go back to verse. My fruit is better than gold. You find out why. Because you have to do all the digging and digging and digging and mining to get to gold and then refine it if you can. Yes, than fine gold. And my revenue than choice silver. Because it involves a lot of digging and digging and digging also to get to silver before you refine it. I traverse the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of justice, that I may cause those who love me to inherit wealth, that I may fill their treasuries. This is what wisdom, knowledge, and witty inventions will bring to you. The Lord possessed me when? At the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I've been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever an earth. I want you to fasten your seatbelt this afternoon, because we are going to look at the purpose for which God created man at the beginning. Why did God create man in the first place? Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28. Genesis 1, 26 to 28. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air. I can't stop laughing when I read these things, because man is going to exercise dominion over the fish of the sea. It does not live inside water. He's going to exercise dominion over the birds of the air. It does not live in the air. And over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. How is that going to happen? So God created man in his own image. Wow. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them both, not male, not female, both. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful. There was no gender dispute here. Be fruitful. Dominion is gender sensitive. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over every living thing that moves on the earth. I want us to have some points to ponder upon. Number one, God created man in his own image and after his own likeness. What does that suggest to you? That simply presupposes that man is innately creative, because the one who created him in his image and after his likeness is the creator. Man is innately creative. But it's up to the individual to use or not to use his or her own creativity. Can't blame anybody for not using your creativity. You are innately creative. God created you so. Number two, by creating man in God's image and after his likeness, God simply endowed man to finish the work of creation. God did not complete it. There were no skyscrapers on the earth, no aeroplanes, no hospitals, no ships on the sea. So God endowed man with dominion and ability to finish the work of creation that God began. Yes, everything was finished from before the foundation of the earth, but he will now give wisdom and knowledge and witty inventions to man to bring into being things that did not exist in the sixth day of creation before God entered into his rest. This is the whole essence of dominion given to man. It was given to him to replenish and to subdue the earth as it becomes fruitful and as it multiplies. Number three, creativity itself is seen in the innovations, inventions, and ideas that men come up with. Those who use their God-given creativity will become rich, and those who don't use theirs will be poor. It's as simple as that. Creativity is seen in innovations, inventions, and as ideas that men come up with. If you come with a solution to a problem that is plaguing society, the whole world will make a beating part to your doorstep. Right now, some are complaining and murmuring and complaining. Others are working on vaccines and this and that. They are looking for solutions to this problem. And the man who locates it first, the laboratory that locates it first, becomes wealthy. Once upon a time, even from my hometown in Abeokuta, my mother told me they had to trek all the way from Abeokuta to come to Lagos to buy plates, Awotangana plates. No means of transportation in those days beyond donkey. How far can donkey travel between Abeokuta and Lagos? But today, you sit inside a Concorde jet, or when Concorde is no more, and a jumbo jet, and in hours, you can eat breakfast in Nigeria, lunch in London, and dinner in Los Angeles, all in one day. Because of witty inventions, innovations, and those who are creating these things are making fabulous wealth. The nations and the people that do not know anything about it remain poor. This is the bottom line. He that has, we get even more because of his creativity. That's why it says, if you listen to my word and do them, I'll give you wisdom, I'll give you understanding, I'll give you knowledge for witty inventions. He that has will even get more because of his creativity. The lack of creativity is the root of exigency and poverty. Therefore, the great divide between the rich and the poor all over the world is creativity. But I must mention one thing. In addition to those who have and use their creativity, and those who don't have and don't use their, those who have but don't use their creativity and become poor, there's another group, the third group, those who misuse their God-given creativity, who then become inventors of evil things. What am I trying to say? The planet Earth we have three categories of people on planet Earth. Number one, those who use their God-given creativity and as a result become very rich. Number two, those who don't use their God-given creativity and are so very poor. And number three, those who misuse their God-given creativity to become inventors of evil things. Many of the ungodly rich are in this category. Romans chapter 1, verse 28 to 32. Romans 1, 28 to 32. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, underline the next line, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of God that those who practice all things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of them, of those who practice them. So you have those who use their God-given creativity to become fabulously wealthy, and those who don't use their God-given creativity and become poor, and those who misuse their God-given creativity to become inventors of evil things. Without a shadow of doubt, the fall of man in the Garden of Eden definitely affected the use of his innate creativity. This can be seen in the offspring of the first family, Adam and Eve, their offspring Cain and Abel. Let me show you from the beginning of time why there must be witty inventions in our day, in our country, whatever we have to do to stop being hungry for technology transfer, to know how to do it ourselves like other nations. Instead of waiting for them to dash us technology, and all we have is CKD, completely knocked down vehicles that will assemble here since over 60 years almost of our independence. What a shame. Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. Now Adam knew his wife, Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I've acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Stay there. I want you to underline that in your Bible, on your iPad, anywhere, anyhow you want to do it. The firstborn was Cain, the secondborn was Abel. But Abel was now put before Cain. Why? Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. We need to dig into why Abel was put before Cain. The simple answer is Abel was engaged in the business of increasing returns. That's all. He was engaged in the business of increasing returns, while Cain was engaged in the business of diminishing returns. Wow, you're going to fight me today, and I'm ready for all your boxing. Abel was engaged in the business of increasing returns. Cain was engaged in the business of diminishing returns. Abel was a keeper of the sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Which ground? The ground that was cursed by God due to man's rebellion. That curse was not reversed until the days of Noah after the flood. And so when Cain and Abel began their trade, one was taking care of sheep, was a keeper of the sheep, and the other was tilling the ground. Let's look at Genesis 3:17 to 19. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. I corrected a friend of mine who said to me, I got all these things from the sweat of my brow. I said, why are you cursing yourself? God hates sweat. You are not sweating when you were made, when you were created. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you are taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. Verse 23. Therefore the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. That ground was cursed, and he was sent back there to be tilling it, to learn the consequences of rebellion. And here comes Cain, like father, like son. He was born after the image of his own fallen father, because they were born after they had fallen into sin because of their rebellion. In Genesis 4, 9 to 12, after Cain killed his brother, listen to God. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. So now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened his mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Now, the ground it will till was cursed. Now is cursed on that ground. When you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. A fugitive and a vagabond you shall be on the earth. So when it became the tiller of the ground, he was tilling that which was cursed. Eventually, out of envy, he killed his brother. The curse on the ground also came upon him. So he was a cursed man, tilling cursed ground. But I have something to show you more. I have something to show you more, because he said, my punishment is greater than I can bear. And God put a mark upon him. May you not bear the mark of Cain in your life. May you be your brother's keeper, not your brother's killer. I want you to note that it was after Cain had murdered his brother, and after he had departed from the presence of God, that his descendants changed from their business of tilling the ground to other ventures, including tent making, herding cattle, playing harp and musical instruments. Musicians came out of them, as well as forging bronze and making iron tools. However, all these ventures were embarked upon after Cain, and by extension his descendants, had departed from the presence of the Lord, and they were inevitably under satanic influence. What does that imply? Their businesses were demon-driven. That's the word you are competing in. Their businesses were demon-driven. Genesis chapter 4, verse 16 to 22. Genesis 4, 16 to 22. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city. Can you imagine? A man who had departed from the presence of the Lord now built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. This is not the Enoch that walked with God. To Enoch was born Irad. Irad begot Mehujael. Mehujael begot Methuselah. Methuselah begot Lamech. Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The first polygynist in the world, the man with 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. So these are tent makers and breeder of sheep. His brother's name was Jubal. That name means trumpet. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. But it matters who is influencing the music. They have departed from the presence of the Lord. There are artists and musicians in the world who are demon-driven, and they are taking the youth to hell, because those who have greater responsibility are not standing in that mountain of entertainment to claim the land and the people back. And as for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain. You don't want to know the meaning of Tubal-Cain. She also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Tubal-Cain means worldly possession. It means possessed of confusion. That is the meaning of that name. Tubal-Cain, worldly possession, possessed of confusion. Have you seen people who gather the whole world through their greed and lust, and they die and they cannot use what they have gathered? These are the ancestors of the manufacturers of weapons of mass destruction, an instructor in brass, in iron. And because they were demon-driven in their businesses, though they built a city, it was built on idolatry, on fraud, on wickedness, on bloodletting. Because the one who married 2 wives eventually killed again. The same bloodline. It is important, therefore, at this critical juncture, to show you the critical factors that separate activities that give increasing returns from those that give diminishing returns. When I said Abel was involved in activities that will continue to give increasing returns, you'll be wondering, is it not just sheep? But how many things can you get from sheep? You get clothing from it. You can get much more from it. But the man who is tilling the ground is only getting this produce of what he puts in the ground. And remember, at that time, even the ground was cursed. Not until after the days of Noah, when the curse was revoked by God. What is it that separates rich and prosperous people from countries, and countries, I beg your pardon, from the wretched of the earth and poor countries of the earth. What is it that separates them? The rich, the resourceful, the progressive, Western world of this world. Some of them have their challenges and troubles now presently, but what is it that separates them? The simple thing is creativity. It may surprise you to know that farming, I hope all my friends in agriculture are listening to me today, because the mainstay of our economy in the past was agriculture before we abandoned it when oil boom came. But now we are going back into it, but we need to add sanctified common sense to it. Why? Because farming and mining are typical decreasing returns activities. I'd like to repeat that. Farming and mining are typical decreasing returns activities. Why? Because in farming, the land gets worn out and is no more as fruitful as it used to be. And in mining, the minerals that are being mined will someday, sooner or later, get finished. Example of a nation that was once living big on mining is Bahrain, the kingdom of Bahrain, whose oil well have since dried up, and they are being largely supported by their neighbor, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia right now, because they are too close for comfort. Dear partners, more and more investment into the land that is no longer fruitful, or the mine that is drying up, will not make the land or the mine more profitable. Let me be patient with you here and take it bit by bit. I'm not going to rush this. More investment into the land that is no longer fruitful, or the mine that is drying up, will not make the land or the mine more profitable. Therefore, the owner of the land or mine can only expect diminishing profits, less money, and less prosperity as the years go by. You can sit there and be wondering, well, I can add fertilizer to my land. It will still not bring the kind of wealth we are talking about, except you know what to do. And I'm going to share that with you. If all you do is to pluck oranges from your trees and pawpaw from your trees and apple from your trees and gather them and sell them, you will still not be as wealthy as other nations and people, because they have added what they call value chains. So they just don't pluck those things. They make other things out of what they pluck. I hope you're listening to me. That's where invention comes in. Look at you, a bag of cocoa that you sell for 5,000 naira or 50,000 naira will be taken to Switzerland, and chocolate bars, 500, will be made out of that one bag of cocoa which you sold for 50,000, and they will sell each bar of chocolate 2,000 naira. They make more money out of what you are doing, because you hunt, you do not roast. Listen, diminishing returns is recorded at least twice in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, where it is stated that the land could not sustain the people. Genesis chapter 13, verse 1 to 12. Genesis 13, 1 to 12. Then Abram went off from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now the land was not able to support them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. Stop there. The land was not able to support them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. That's enough reference for you to see the land was not able to support them. Look at Genesis 36 also, verses 6 and 7. What happened in the days of Abraham and the times of Lot that separated them happened in the time of Jacob and Esau. Then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the persons of his household, his cattle, and all his animals, and all his goods, which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and went to a country away, migration. You are going to find out why our people migrate from our land and why they are not here. Went into a country away from the presence of his brother Jacob. Why? For their possessions were too great for them to dwell together, and the land where they were strangers could not support them because of their livestock. Brothers and sisters, fellow countrymen and women, if we do not learn in time from this as a nation, we'll continue to invest mainly in activities that produce diminishing returns. Until we add value chains to our agriculture, we'll continue to go cap in hand to nations who have since moved away from our stupidity. By way of contrast, increasing returns activities are born out of creativity and consist of things like manufacturing or running factories that continue to give higher and higher profits every year, especially if they are run efficiently. Why? This is because the initial investment that was made to set up the factory will not need to be made again year after year. For example, if 2 billion naira is used to set up the factory, the investors may have paid back their bills by the 5th year. This means from the 6th year onwards, they will make more and more profit because they will not have those initial expenses anymore. Sanctify common sense, my friend. They will continue to make ever-increasing profits from their industry because of this reality. So while the farmer and the miner experiencing reduced or diminishing returns from their farms and their mines, the operators of factories and industries will be experiencing increasing and higher profits from their own activities. Dear partners, creativity is a form of godliness. It is being like God because God is first and foremost the creator. Even the unbelievers of this world have used this principle of creativity and has caused rich countries to get richer, while those who have not used their creativity have become poorer. Rich and creative countries actually specialize in wealth-creating activities that economists call increasing returns activities. And poor countries specialize in non-creative, poverty-causing activities that produce diminishing returns. Therefore, rich countries have all become rich exactly the same way, through policies steering them away from diminishing returns. Go to Dubai and learn. Go learn of their policies that attracted foreign investment in their country. They are not dependent on oil. Abu Dhabi has more oil than Dubai. But Dubai attracts the whole world because of policies that are steering them away from diminishing returns activities to increasing returns activities like manufacturing. Singapore had no single mineral resource, and today is a first world nation. Malaysia took our palm oil seeds to their country. They are making more money because of value chain. They are making more money out of palm oil than we are making from our crude oil. Listen to me. Those who sell iPods and iPads have risen up to dominate those who harvest oranges, groundnuts, and tomatoes for a living without adding value chains to them. Like God, the former, those who sell iPods and iPads, like God, they rule and dominate those who sell oranges and groundnuts without value chains. Because of creativity. Creativity causes them to rise and operate in higher and superior dimensions. Every time I think of this, there's a gnawing on the inside of me when I see the wastage going on in Nigeria and are not seizing the opportunities to make this country great again. Until the harvesters of oranges and pawpaws can add other activities, namely value chains, that will earn them higher incomes, they will continue to be dominated. May I say this with a lot of humility, that it is a lack of imagination and lack of creativity that's at the bottom of our herdsmen and farmers' bloody clashes across our nation. Imagine if we can add technology to strategy and create ranches that grow their own grass in-house under a scientifically controlled atmosphere. All the clashes between farmers and AK-47 wielding herdsmen will be eliminated. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting Scotland with my wife, and I was taken to a farm. They are willing to partner with us and with our nation. I pray we'll have opportunities sooner than later to create such in our climate. I got to that farm. Everything that the animals were eating were being produced in just a hall, in a controlled environment. The grasses were growing. They didn't need to be going about the fields. And they've tested everything. They are not poisonous for human consumption. Men have gone far. They say, oh, how can there be that technology? Do you think Noah gathered all the grass in the world and put in that ark? There must be a technology in that ark that was producing the cattle, the grass that the cattle will eat for that long period. Let's put on our thinking cap. I think by God's grace, it will give us opportunity sooner than later to create such in our climate and stop all these useless and uncalled for bloody clashes between nomadic herdsmen and farmers. Furthermore, it's a lack of creativity that has led to a large number of our people migrating in search of greener pastures. The Bible has clear examples of how diminishing returns from the land leads to nomadic lifestyles. The numbers in Sokoto, or the numbers in Karanamoda, or the numbers in Daura, they do not need to come to the south. If we create ranches in their environment and give them scientifically produced, properly produced nutrition for their animal, who wants to die walking up and down? You've been to London, you've been to Glasgow, you've been everywhere. Do you see herdsmen running the streets of London and creating havoc everywhere? Because of Witty Inventions, they have overcome that challenge. Wherever you find people still leading nomadic lifestyles or migrations or outright wars, it's because the land could not sustain them, and more often than not, the fight is over mineral resources in the ground. The first written war in the Bible is in Genesis 14, 1-16. Let us see what caused that war. Why did they fight? What were they fighting over? It was simply over land and over mineral resources. Genesis 14, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Ariel, king of Elasar, Kedolaoma, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Basha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemba, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All this joined together where? In the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedolaoma, and in 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Kedolaoma and the kings that were with him came and attacked the Rephaim in Ashteroth, Canem, the Suzim in Ham, the Emim in Shaveh Kiriathim, and the Horites in the mountain of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Watch this. Then they turned back and came to Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and attacked all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. Why were they attacking them? The king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, the king of Bela, that is, went out and joined together in battle in the valley of Siddim. What were they fighting over? Against Kedolaoma, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Ariel, king of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. What were they fighting over? Now the valley of Siddim was full of asphalt pits. They were fighting over mineral resource that you call asphalt. I'm told that the asphalt in Ondo State alone can tar the whole of Africa if we know what to do. Now the valley of Siddim was full of asphalt pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Some fell there, and the remainder fled to the mountains. Then they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Then one who had escaped came and told Abraham the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Anah, and they were allies with Abraham. Listen to me, my dear friends, brothers and sisters. When Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And what did he do? He divided his forces against them by night, and he and his servants attacked them and pursued them as far as Oba, which is north of Damascus. So he brought back all the goods. Oh, we are going to bounce back again. He brought back all the goods. This is the faith of Abraham in action. We are solution providers. And he also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. What have we put in place to ensure that our land bounces back again? They were merely fighting over mineral resource. Look at how crude oil had become the mainstay of our economy. Now oil prices are falling. Now, instead of profits, even NNPC is declaring close to no profit at all, huge losses, Kaduna refinery, and all those things. And we are still not thinking, because we are borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Who will pay back? What will you use to pay back? Now that about 80% of our receivables is paid on loans, where will development come from? What are we going to spend on infrastructure? Our leaders are dying like pawpaw because they no longer could travel abroad and no hospitals were built that could sustain us in a time like this. Let's put on our thinking cap. We can't continue this way. As I close, let me focus our attention on the innovations and technological change all around us. Pray if you have to, fast if you must, but by all means, legal, moral, and ethical, please add to your fasting and praying, and to your church attendance and vigils, add to them the acquisition of wisdom, knowledge, and skills for witty inventions, because the future belongs to entrepreneurs, not just intercessors. The future belongs to entrepreneurs also, and job creators, not just job seekers. As we speak today, 40 million people are out of jobs in America, the highest number in recent history. It will soon become another pandemic. I hope you will not be caught unawares this time. And just in case you are waiting for bailout and palliative measures from government, just know that you have chosen to sign your own death warrant. Brothers and sisters, innovators and creators worldwide are paid heavily for their achievements. This is why nations which have innovated, nations which have invented, nations which have created things like watches, like cars, telephones, trains, air conditioners, heaters, pianos, guitars, washing machines, cookers, microwave ovens, blenders, and motorcycles have become stupendously wealthy. For how long are we going to remain a consumer nation producing nothing that the world can buy from? Ships come to our nation fully loaded to offload. They return empty because we have nothing to send to the world. Cargo planes fly from nations to here. They have little or nothing to carry back. I remember when I was involved in aviation business and cargo business, when those things are coming to our country, we have to be looking for space. When it is time to go back, we are looking for what to shock the space because we do not have so many things to carry. Anybody who innovates and creates elevates himself above the life of an ordinary man and lifts himself above the cause of poverty that afflicts most of the people on the planet Earth. And if you care to know, what do we mean by innovation? I'll give you 4 definitions of innovation, so that you don't think, oh, wow, God, where would I get capital for innovation? How am I going to ever? Look, Zuckerberg and all those young men, Facebook, look at how wealthy they are. The wallet at the back of their purse is the wallet that they carry, the value of their wealth, can buy Nigeria cash down. Instead of investing in human capital to let our sons go learn and to come back and innovate for our land, they're dying in the desert. They're prostitutes crossing the sea and going to other nations. Let's think before it is too late. What do we mean by innovation? Number 1, innovation is a new way of doing old things. That's all. It's a new way of doing old things. Once upon a time, when I would get to courts in the morning, you will see people with manual typewriter with their ribbons red and black, typing and using eraser. That time has come, it has gone. Who is now sitting with manual typewriter? Hardly do people use even electric typewriter anymore. When you have Pentium and other things you can speak to that will type for you in the days of iPads and all kinds of desktops. Innovation is a new way of doing old things. Number 2 is the introduction of new processes and new methods. You see that computer will replace many people now. We are going back to the beginning of time when the work of Adam was in his house or residence in the garden. Now people are working from home. There will be less traffic congestion on the road. Let's think. Let's wear our thinking cap and let God think through our thoughts and speak through our vocal cord. We cannot continue doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. Innovation is introducing new processes and new methods. Here we are talking to the whole world more or less through live stream now. I would have been jumping 4, 5 times and jumping up and down, climbing and going down and with all kinds of stress. And then you say the man died. Why would he not die? Number 3, innovation is the introduction of a new invention, that is the provision of something new, something improved, and something better than what exists. Before I came to Lagos in 1973, the method of cleaning my feet before secondary school was chewing stick, like this. And I see how they clean mouth. But when I saw toothpaste and toothbrush can do a faster job, I abandoned chewing stick. There are those who die with their chewing stick because they are used to it. No, innovation is the introduction of new invention, the provision of something new, something improved, and something better than what exists. Finally, innovation improves the efficiency of an existing process, and oftentimes, this is the catch, oftentimes lowers the cost of doing certain things. If you want to trek from here to Karanamoda, it will take some days if you don't die on the road and you're not attacked. But you can simply step into a plane, an aircraft in Lagos, and in no time you land there, 1 hour, 2 hours, you're already there. You're fresh. There are aircrafts now that you can even sleep on and stretch all over. Do we want to remain this poor nation, poverty-stricken forever? Or do we want to invest in human capital? Here's my punchline for today. We need to innovate and create in order to manufacture things. Once upon a time, Dunlop was in this land producing tires. Now we are importing. They have relocated to Ghana. All the facts because of lack of electricity. For God's sake, 60 years after independence, I think our leaders should bury their heads in shame and change their attitude and begin to put investment in what is critical and will turn our nation around. You hear humongous sum that is spent on electricity from 1990. Today, you are so ashamed that we are still in the same inglorious spot. Ghana now has light and it's not winking, it's not blinking. And all investors are going to Ghana. It takes much creativity to manufacture a Mercedes-Benz than it does to harvest oranges. This explains why countries which continue to gather oranges and mangoes and pawpaws and coconuts that are falling from a tree and poor, and we continue to be poor. Why? They have not innovated or invented anything. They have specialized in activities of decreasing returns. They have sold their produce in perfect markets, regulated by others. There's a difference between perfect market and imperfect market. Perfect market is regulated by others because there's a limit to how you can control the price you put on your produce. If 10,000 orange sellers show up in the market, the place will be flooded. So you have to look at, okay, what will be the price? How much do they sell a basket full of oranges in Abuja or in Lagos or elsewhere? But there are imperfect markets where manufacturers dictate their own price. There's only one company in the world producing Cadillac or producing Mercedes-Benz. They determine their own price. It's called imperfect market, where they can dictate how much they want for their products. But we can't dictate nothing. We can't even dictate the price of crude oil. Others determine it for us. We don't even know how much oil has been pumped out of our ground, if you'll be honest. They are determined by OICs. If we remain this way, our people will remain poor, our nations will specialize in poverty. Consequently, the innovations left for the citizens of many poor countries is to discover clever methods for leaving their own countries. Identity theft. They will steal passports. They, by hook and crook, they will go and queue up at embassies in order to get visas. They will dare the devil go through the desert. They will dare the devil go through the sea. Why? They are using their creativity to discover clever methods of leaving their own countries and getting to rich countries so as to settle there by hook or crook. Look at the brain drain that we have suffered. If all Nigerians in Britain today, in the United Kingdom, who are doctors and nurses, will withdraw their services, NHS will be paralyzed. We have lost our sons and daughters to go serve in other nations, and at best as second-class citizens. I once met a consultant surgeon in Harley Street who called me aside. He said, "What happened to your country?" Because he was Indian, I was shocked. "What do you know about my country?" He said to me, "My father was working in Zaria. My sister read medicine at Ahmadu Bello University, or University of Ibadan." And he said, "I read my medicine at Uniben, and we came over because our father left your country to come here. What had happened to your educational system?" Brothers and sisters, I've said enough today. The brain drain we are suffering from will continue until we checkmate same by investing heavily in human capital as well as in manufacturing and in industries. We must become creative in our work. Creativity will put us in the bracket of those who have and separate us from those who don't have. Those who have, more will be given to them. World history itself and the gap between the rich and the poor peoples and nations of the earth confirm the teachings of the Bible. We don't have to go and fast and pray and dream. Thank God for prayers. Thank God for fasting. Thank God for our church attendance. We have attended church for 30 years. Now there's a break to go back home and think and put your thinking cap. We already know what will happen in the future. Just by reading your Bible and by looking at what history, we know what will happen in the future. What is it that's going to happen in the future? Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. Ecclesiastes 1, 9 and 10. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which it may be said, "See, this is new"? It has already been in ancient times before us. What is this scripture saying? Right from the foundation of the earth, there have been people involved in businesses that produce increasing returns, and there are others that have forever dwelt and put all their resources in businesses that will produce decreasing returns. We must find a new way of doing things, because there's nothing new under the sun. If we only think that they are not better than us, we are not better than them. They use their creativity. We didn't use ours. We just consume and consume and consume, and our land has become dumping ground for the nations of the earth. It's up to you and I to learn from the Word of God and history, to position ourselves accurately. For whoever has, to him one will be given, but whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Our independence is no longer independence because we are still dependent. China is holding Africa by the jugular vein because we are all Africans going there to borrow money. And now they dictate the pace, they dictate the time, and we are so confused that when they send their experts here, we don't know whether they are contractors or whether they are medical experts. This is just a shame of a nation. It must stop. And I prophesy that a new generation is getting ready to begin to say, we must save our land. We have no other country we can call our own. This is it. This is the time. This is the hour. Those who have embezzled and have eaten our patrimony must be stopped dead in their tracks. For a new breed without greed, a radical opposition to corruption, men and women with witty inventions who choose to win by righteousness must rise up and rescue our nation from grinding poverty. And that will be our experience if we put our hearts into it by the grace of God. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Here's where we will draw the curtain for the Dominion Partners Annual Conference 2020. Our next Dominion Partners Quarterly Seminar will take place on Saturday, the 5th of September 2020 by the grace of God.